options.
It's been another busy week at the Dr.Hourani home inquiry this week, with current and former staff denying allegations made against them, and with the former leader of the opposition, Joe Bossano, also speaking at the inquiry, saying he felt people were scared to speak out throughout that whole episode. Cristina Cortes now looks back at another busy week in court.
Allegations have been both made and denied in the second week of the Dr.Hourani home inquiry. The coroner's court heard from the sister of a resident who said her sister had complained repeatedly that one of the staff was egging on another one of the residents to kiss her, and added that every time she had attempted to raise the complaints with someone, they just referred her to someone else. Although the question was raised of inaccuracies within the residents' statements, care agency psychologist Giselle Carreras, who also said she had heard the residents' complaints, maintained she had found her credible and consistent throughout. The allegations were denied by former care worker Angelica Williams, who said she had never encouraged one resident to touch another inappropriately, nor had she seen a similarly accused co-worker ever do so. Mrs. Williams also denied having ever hit one of the residents. For her part, former care worker Michelle Garro claimed the resident who'd made the accusations had never complained of such treatment to her, nor had she been made aware of it by anyone else at the time. Both workers were suspended in 2004 and reinstated in 2006, but resigned shortly afterwards, with Mrs. Garro saying she'd lost all her confidence. Further allegations were made by care worker Denise Hassan, who said a group of carers used to make fun of the residents all the time, and referred to a 2003 incident where two care workers had allegedly tried to arouse one of the residents, with one going on to lie on top of him. The current manager at the home and care worker at the time, Sean Matto, answered questions as to the existence and purpose of a time-out room, saying such a room had been built but never used because it was deemed inappropriate. Former acting manager Sharon Berini spoke of victimization by former manager Joanna Hernandez, going on to say she'd been shocked when first shown allegations made by co-workers, adding that these had been collected in an unprofessional way. Ms. Berini said she was aware there had been abuses at the home, but said these had been dealt with at the time, leading to the suspension of several workers. And giving evidence on his role representing Joanna Hernandez at her successful 2006 Industrial Tribunal for unfair dismissal, Joe Bossano, the then leader of the opposition, declared he felt people were scared to speak out throughout the whole episode. Mr. Bossano said he believed that from the outset attempts were made to influence people to prevent the circumstances that led to the dismissal being put in the public domain. When asked for tangible facts, Mr. Bossano said that if people are being pressured, it's very difficult to produce these, but added that if he were to mention the names of those who were scared of being intimidated, it would fill up half a telephone directory. The inquiry resumes on Monday, with the Chief Minister at the time of the allegations, Peter Caruana, among the witnesses who will give evidence next week.
The GGCA committee has signed a collective agreement for staff transfers at customs, which, if carried forward, will see members rotating between departments. The GGCA represents the vast majority of customs union members. However, Unite the Union says rotation at customs sets a precedent in the public service which will undermine terms and conditions of service.
GGCA, who represents 79 members at Customs, says this agreement is essentially a renegotiation of the 2003 collective agreement, which allowed for the consideration of a rotation model for the whole department. The union says that since 2003, the majority of staff members at Customs House have wanted that rotation model, and that has been achieved.
Within the Customs Department, there's an admin section and an enforcement section, and within that there are specific sections that deal with specialised work. Now, basically, what this agreement sets out to do is to introduce a rotation system for those little pockets also, so that the entire complement, the idea is that the entire complement of the Customs Department will be subject to a rotation process.
Are there some areas of customs who have perhaps spent years
building up their contacts or learning about that specialized area of the work that perhaps might become undone by this rotation system?
Not at all, because the whole idea of this specific agreement, which has been negotiated over a period of 9 months, we've been very careful, and where there are a number of officers, only one comes out. So basically it means that the new entrant can have an opportunity for professional development and for training, but whilst the majority of the experience and the knowledge is retained within the section.
6 years ago we had a group of professionals arriving from the UK, and basically they came to conduct a review of the department. One of the things that they highlighted was that in order to eradicate some elements of organizational inertia, there should be some sort of bespoke arrangement in which all sections of the department should rotate.
The committee says it feels that this agreement will be of enormous benefit to its members, as it ensures the rotation of all staff, giving equal opportunities for professional development, training and promotion to all customs officers.
Those little pockets where there is extra emphasis on training, on development, will be opened out and will be made accessible to all.
But Unite the Union says the rotation system is unfair and unjustified, because it's been introduced to appease the demands of a few who are seeking to promote their own personal interests. Unite, who represents 20 members at Customs, says it recognises it no longer holds the negotiating rights for Customs officers, but reserves the right to represent its members.
The rotation system has existed since 2003 for all Customs officers, but never with the inclusion of specialized areas, such as the IB. Now, it has been renegotiated now with the GGCA and Customs Management. Again, I repeat myself, with the exclusion of Unite membership, and they have come to a decision where it has been signed already, and this could cause deterioration to their working practices.
But the GGCA holds the negotiating rights because they have the majority of members.
Yes, they do. They do. Whether we like it or not, this is a reality. They hold the majority of members now, and they hold negotiating rights. But we hold representation rights for our members.
So if there was a workplace where you represent the majority of members and another union that represents the minority of members objected to your negotiating, wouldn't you object to that?
No, whoever we take it as valid that whoever has the negotiating rights and hold the majority of members will always win the negotiation bid. But obviously, we have always included, throughout the history of T&G and now Unite, we have always included the minority to voice their concerns out.
I would uphold their absolute right to represent their members in this issue. Obviously, we have diametrically opposed views in this matter, but the underlying issue for me is that if they entered into a collective agreement in 2003, which sets out very clearly, that the collector is under an obligation to consider the feasibility of the rotation of specialised posts, that this development can't come as a surprise.
The GGCA says the negotiating process has been long and sometimes difficult, and compromises have had to be made. For example, the agreement specifies that customs officers who are near retirement won't be affected by the rotation system. However, it feels the agreement will, in the long term, benefit the force and the community.
The opposition has called on the government to give a full and frank statement of how things are progressing at Commonwealth Park. It says the request is motivated by reports of difficulties and setbacks on the site, including the proximity of the water table. Stephen Nish spoke to Shadow Traffic spokesman Selvin Figueres.
One thing I'd like to clarify from the office that it's unfortunate that in the press this statement issued by myself this morning has been characterised as a demand, when in fact all this is essentially seeking information from the government because, for one reason or another, there's been a pause in proceedings in terms of Parliament, and there not being Parliament in August, and then in September there being no question time. And yes, it is true that I have been approached by members of the community who have expressed an interest in the Commonwealth Park project. It is of course a flagship project. And we've also had a number of approaches from various individuals mentioning the fact that there seemed to have been a series of difficulties, unforeseen developments at the site, which of course, in the normal course of things, can of course be entirely expected. And the nature of the statement is to seek information and more details on those particular issues for the information to keep the public informed.
You were mentioning that there wasn't a meeting of Parliament in August and that in September there were no questions from the opposition. But of course we are in October now, and a meeting of Parliament presumably is just 2 or 3 weeks away. You could of course have put all these questions at that meeting.
I could have, certainly, absolutely, and I can certainly still ask the questions in any event in the next session of Parliament. That's absolutely right. However, it is an issue that has drawn a lot of public interest. I mean, you'll recall perhaps that there was a long and heated exchange in respect of the Commonwealth Park some months ago, because it does raise very important issues in relation to finances and various other issues, which are a theme of the opposition's approach to the current government's management of affairs since their election in 2011.
The works on site seem to be progressing rather well. We've just been there to take some pictures, so it's not that there's a delay there, and that's what's worrying you.
The issue of the delay is one of the satellite issues that have been raised by concerned citizens who have come to speak to us, rather to inform us of the information that they've become aware of. And the reason why we're issuing this statement is because we want to elicit information in respect of the costs so far and the estimated costs of this project as far as the government can estimate. You see, Stephen, the point is that in last week there was an announcement in respect of the housing projects which have begun and piling is underway. And we know that there is an estimate of around £116 million in respect of those two projects. And our question is, well, if you know that, why is there an issue with letting us know what the estimated cost of the park is going to be?
Don't you think that some people might find it rather cynical of you to call for a full and frank statement on Commonwealth Park now, when, as I say, the next meeting of Parliament is just a couple of weeks away and you haven't asked for it at all during the summer?
Well, I don't think people will find it cynical at all, Stephen, actually. I think it's, as I've explained, a matter of public interest. And as the end of the summer season's situation that we had, where we were giving the government space, has come to an end, it was appropriate, in our view certainly, to reawaken the issue, to have this matter debated in public so that the public is aware, because it is, again, one of the flagship commitments, and well, certainly the hope is that it won't be seen as a cynical attempt to cast the government in a bad light at all. It's just a simple matter of requesting information, and I suspect that there will be further to come.
Also this week it was revealed the Spanish government is to pay nearly €1 million to Spanish fishermen affected by the current conflict. Europe Minister David Lidington tells MP Caroline Lucas the British government will engage with the European Commission to ensure the outcome of the recent visit by EU inspectors is as positive as possible for Gibraltar. And Canadian MP Russell Hybert visited The Rock. For the rest of this week's news, head over to our website at gbc.gi/news. And don't forget to tune in to Radio Gibraltar and GBC Television throughout the week for the very latest local news. You can also follow us on Twitter and find us on Facebook as well. Thank you very much for watching. From the team, good night.